let's talk about some reputation in Web2 or real life. And so we can start drawing some conclusions around where we might be able to show improvements on that in the future. So I've got some examples that I've drafted up here. I'd love for you to throw some out too if you have any that are really striking for you. But the first one is your work reputation. Now, that's your resume and specifically LinkedIn. And on LinkedIn, we selectively choose what information we present to represent our experience, right? That's me simply, I type in my reputation score on LinkedIn. No one's fact checking that.
Yeah. So that is an example of like Web2 reputation. And actually, one of my favorite questions to ask people about their LinkedIn resume is like, what'd you leave off of here? Or like, what's the weakest part of this thing, and what's the thing you didn't put on here? But yeah, I would consider LinkedIn as like in that category of like work credentials, because that's what most people are using it for. And then underneath here also follows like college degrees, or maybe your CDL for truck drivers, or your certification in a foreign language. And so this broad category of work credentials right now, it's kind of painful to verify that information. You know, you hear the stories on the news. It's like, oh, this guy, lied about having a degree at such and such a place, right? And that's a college
Yeah.
degree, and those are reasonably easy to verify. And then
There's
once you go off of that, it becomes even harder to verify that stuff.
there's a famous Leonardo DiCaprio movie. I can't remember what it's called right now, but he's a doctor, he's like a politician, he's a lawyer, all in one movie because no one can he falsifies all his documents and no one can actually verify that he's not what he says he is.
Yeah, and this is part of the verification piece, and it's actually a huge industry. So there are huge players that work in work credentials for Web two, and and companies spend tens of millions of dollars. Like Walmart and Amazon, I'm sure also has this, but they have like work credentials for people who work in their warehouses to make sure they have the proper training, whatever, and then that way they can move portably across the different warehouse places where they work. And truck drivers obviously. So there's just a ton of stuff here, and the problem that you have is that you can trust a Walmart credential if you're Amazon, probably, like, right. So like if you can see that Walmart says that, oh, this person is certified for warehouse whatever level, and then you're Amazon, you're hiring, you're like, okay, yeah, that probably transfers. But if you have a work credential from maybe a smaller shipping and distribution company, it's much more difficult, and they don't have a process for standardizing those credentials on chain. And so what we really need is open system for any application or business to be able to post people's credentials so that third parties can then verify that data. And that way, when you go from one interaction to another interaction, you can have them check against a third party who's reputable, and then they can see that record on chain so that they know it was written properly, right? So
Yeah.
this ability to verify is a blocker for really enriching digital identity, basically for every industry. And like definitely a crypto boomer here. I'm over 30, and so I think about real world things like these work credentials for trucking or warehousing or all these other types of places where you may be going. But it's also online, on your online, just interacting with apps. So that's work credentials is one that I think is pretty big. Another one we do here at Unstoppable Domains is humanity check. It's like, driver's license, DMV type stuff, KYC. There's a whole bunch of stuff around regulated products that are going to make their way on chain because it's easier. It's going to be just so much cheaper for all these exchanges to verify your KYC or have you verify it one time and then use that portably across. Because just think about the paperwork and the overhead. And if we can make that all digital too.
Yeah. So quick question there is if we don't have like this humanity check and KYC integration with NFT domains, that means you're going to have to do it at if let's say Coinbase requires it, you have to prove humanity there, and then OpenSea requires it, you have to prove humanity there, and then your next favorite app, like they might all start requiring it in the future. And without that domain integration, you would have to do it over and over and over again. Am I right in that thinking?
Correct. Yeah. And that's why we just think it's a no brainer for to use blockchain naming systems, NFT domains, as this consistent identifier across these apps. And because you can tie that back once, and it's going to do the most important thing, which is save people time and save them money, right? Because you just have to do it once, and then you can use the same thing a bunch of different times. And we think I think it's a much better future.
Yeah. And why does it make more sense for it to happen at the domain level than the wallet level?
Well, again, I think the biggest problem here is people losing their keys. So you need to make sure that if you have one level of abstraction up, it's easier to build in backups and security around a name. And then also names are more memorable. So if I need to share my name to someone else to do a lookup, right, verbally, for instance, or even if I need to type it in, I don't want to have to copy paste my wallet address across all those different places. So I think it's a huge improvement in UX and then also for consumer security.
You're listening to the Unstoppable Podcast, the go-to place for everyone to learn about the latest innovations in Web3, NFTs, and the decentralized web. Welcome to the metaverse.